People paying money to see me in a 20x20 ring.
Hello again, wrestling fans. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the 20x20 Ring Crew. I am Matt, alongside, as always, Joe.
Fuck him.
Fuck him is right. We say that because we are watching day 4 of the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax, a 19-day event, or 19-show event.
19 shows, yeah.
Because it takes place within a time frame of a month. If you haven't checked out any of the G1, we both highly recommend you do so. Very good tournament thus far. You can check out our website, 20x20crew.com/podcast/NJPW if you don't have subscriptions and you want to know how to do that. So we're talking about G1 and the tournament that's happening. We're watching day 4 as it's happening. Well, actually, not as it's happening because it's in Japan and they're way ahead of us. A lot of things to talk about thus far already in this tournament. Stuff that kind of happened before the tournament, stuff that's happening during the tournament. So much tension is happening in the New Japan world that I know you and I want to talk about. And I guess let's start with, and maybe it's because we see the new portion of the Bullet Club, as it's officially divided now, come out in the team of Bad Luck Fale and Tangaloa, the Firing Squad, BC Firing Squad, BCOGs.
They don't want to be called the Firing Squad.
They're not called that anymore?
They don't want to be called that. That was like just a
one-time.
Oh, that was like a T-shirt. That was it.
Okay, so they're not called that anymore. All right, fair enough. If you're not too familiar with what's going on, it goes back to July 7th, which was the G1 special in San Francisco, which took place in the suburb of San Francisco, and the main event was Kenny Omega versus Cody. Great match. Check that out on New Japan Pro Wrestling World as well if you didn't watch it on Access TV. And Kenny Omega wins the match, retains the title. He, alongside the Young Bucks, are on the ramp. Out comes the Guerrillas of Destiny with their father, King Haku. Guerrillas of Destiny, by the way, is a team of Tama Tonga and Tangaloa. They all celebrate. They two sweet each other. Everything's going good. Confetti ends up coming out of canisters. Everything looking good. End of the show, right? That's how we end it. Omega and the Bucks, they're celebrating. Their backs are turned against the Tongans. The next thing you see is Tama Tonga just running through Kenny Omega. And it leads to just an ultimate beatdown with those three beating down the entire Bullet Club because, out comes Hangman Page. He gets a 2. Out comes Chase Owens and Yujiro Takahashi. They get a 2. Marty Scurll, who actually came out before the other two. And out comes Cody, who just got done with a match. He's obviously still tired and beat up from the match, and Tama Tonga gives him a chair. And it's pretty much like the writing's on the wall that this is a setup by Cody. And then Cody takes a chair and he hits Tama Tonga with it. And then he gets it too. So, for his efforts, that was the shot. The shot was made. The Tongans, if you will, stake their claim where they stand with the Bullet Club. We saw right before the G1 where Bad Luck Fale, who was not at the show at the time, where he stood in this whole Bullet Club Civil War thing. And Tangaloa said it really good or at least I felt he said it really well at the G1 special, that there is no leader of the Bullet Club, that we are all equals. So this is pretty much an angle where nobody, and I remember on an earlier episode of our podcast that I had mentioned, where are the Tongans in all of this? And we never got to it. And it's just one of those things. I'm not saying that I called this happening. I'm not saying that at all. But it's one of those things where, as it happened, there was no surprise for me. And I don't mean that as in I wasn't entertained, because I was very much entertained and glued to my TV. But it was, where do they fit in all this? Because you can't, for all you people who are Bullet Club fans, but not fans from the original formation back in 2013. You might look at a guy like Tama Tonga and say he's just a member of the Bullet Club. That the Bullet Club is basically Kenny Omega, Cody, the Young Bucks, Marty Scurll, and Hangman Page. And you're wrong. You're dead wrong if that's what you perceive as the Bullet Club or the main part of the Bullet Club. That's just not accurate. Tama Tonga is an original member. As a matter of fact, he's one of 2 guys that are still in the Bullet Club that have been there since day one. And the other guy is Bad Luck Fale. It makes sense that they do an angle where Tama Tonga and Bad Luck Fale, as you said earlier, fuck them. They want to fight over who's going to be the leader of the Bullet Club? No, there is no leader. Essentially, and you can add more to it, but essentially that's the angle here.
That's exactly the angle. And yeah, I don't think either of us called it, but
no.
The entire time, both of us had that question in the back of our mind, like, where are the Tongans in all this? Because they're just kind of sitting idly by and letting this go on. Let's face it, they're just too tough. They're too adamant in their point of view to be sitting idly by and not doing anything. So it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely coming. I just didn't think it was going to be at this point in time. You and I talked before the episode, New Japan and their booking just seems to come out of left field and surprise everyone every now and again. And, you know, as much as me and Matt love to sit here and fantasy book a bunch of stuff, you just can't always see everything come. I mean, we can take all the educated guesses in the world.
Yeah.
And you just, with New Japan, you never know. And that's part of the excitement. Like, I love that. I love that I'm not able to guess everything. Because otherwise, it would be like watching Monday night.
Yeah. and see, that's the thing. Right? That's the point, you know, you just made was, what I was trying to say was, again, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't just completely just shocked that, oh my God, this is happening. You're right. The timing is weird because it's right before the G1 climax. Really weird that they're doing it there. But also, too, even though you feel like it was going to happen, it was just a matter of they clear the air with Kenny and Cody, and you're so caught up in that storyline that you just kind of forget about everything else. You know, even us guys who've been fans since almost day one. I wasn't a fan of Bullet Club the day that they formed, but closely afterwards. So I know the importance of the Underboss and of Tama Tonga. Even then, it was easy to kind of just forget about it for that moment in time. And I guess that's how compelling the Kenny Cody Civil War was. So congratulations for those guys for doing that and everyone involved. But I think it's great. I think it's great that they have done this because now, no matter how this angle finishes, what you have now is a Bullet Club where every single member is a legitimate member. Because for a long time, you know, God and Bad Luck Fale and, you know, Yujiro Takahashi, even though he's not a member of whatever they're calling themselves right now, you know, but those guys were just like, yeah, they're there. You know, look, this ain't the NWO. With all due respect, 'cause I know he has a lot of history at NJPW, but there are no fucking Scott Nortons in this group or Vincents or, you know, guys who are just there just to wear the colors. Like, everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a role. And the same applies for Bad Luck Fale and Tama Tonga and Tangaloa and those guys. So I think right here is now they're in a legitimate storyline again. I think it's great.
Absolutely.
Even though I don't like Bullet Club Civil Wars. Yeah. You know, it is what it is, but it's everybody has a purpose now. It's not just as Bad Luck Fale does what he does best and flip people off. It's not just the guys that you see on the YouTube channel. It's everybody else that puts on that Bullet Club shirt.
Absolutely. My daughter and I were watching night one. Night one there was a match involved as part of the tournament with Bad Luck Fale.
Yeah.
I believe it was against
Hangman Page.
Hangman Adam Page.
Fellow Bullet Club member for those.
Right. So this is Fale's first match back after having a couple months off.
Yeah, since he lost 6-man tag titles.
Yeah, so he comes back. He's about 40 pounds lighter. He looks to be in a much better shape. They get in the ring, and my daughter is like, you know, okay, this is crazy. This is probably not going to end well. at least for one of these guys. And I said, well, probably not for Hangman Page because, you know, if we're following logic here, Fale's coming back and he's pissed.
Yeah.
You know? So the match goes on, and I said, you know what? We'll see how much he cares about those 2 points, those possible 2 points for that win in that match. And, like, no sooner did I say that, he got DQ'd. So, like, he could give two shits. And then Tama and Tonga came out, and the three of them started wailing on Page, and that was it. You know, Page won the 2 points for his tournament appearance that night, and but the OGs they put notice out like, we're not taking anybody's bullshit, and we're here to fucking kick ass and take names. I'm all for it, man. I absolutely love that. Anytime you have a faction like this, back when the NWO was huge, that's what I loved about it. They came in and they fucking wrecked shop. And then it got to the point where you did have guys just hanging around who were wearing a t-shirt and they didn't really do shit. And it's like, man, it's starting to get lame, you know?
Yeah.
So I am all for this. Although I don't think that's kind of the conundrum here. None of those guys in Bullet Club are really lame. Like, they're all decent workers. I mean, yeah, obviously you have guys getting pushed more than others, but
sure, yeah,
they're all highly capable at what they do. Case in point, like Chase Owens. Like, a lot of people are like, man, fuck Chase Owens. No, Chase Owens is probably one of the most underrated wrestlers on the fucking New Japan roster.
Anybody that they do a lot of like special guest commentary for New Japan show, especially when Don Callis isn't around. In this case right now for the G1 Climax, it's been Rocky Romero. And every time, every match, and, you know, this is not just, you know, if it's just Rocky Romero here, then you can say, oh, it's just one guy's opinion, but all the time you hear that from wrestlers. Like, this is probably the most underrated guy in the company today. And it's, you know, again, they're breaking the rules here because, you know, you got a Chaos guy complimenting a Bullet Club guy. That's a no-no.
Yeah, this should be a no-no.
You know, but it is what it is. But, you know, and I was one of those guys when I first started watching Chase Owens, and keep in mind, he was just coming off of an injury that I just like, yeah, why is he here? You know, why is he here? But I quickly learned the name, and he's one of the best workers, and quite honestly, let's put it this way: if Kenny Omega and Cody weren't in the Bullet Club right now, as far as westernizing the product, he would be a top runner along with Hangman Page.
Definitely.
So,
he's a great combination wrestler. Again, very fucking underrated, man. As we watch him in action in a tag match.
What's up with Kazuchika Okada coming out with balloons now? What is that?
So, I don't know exactly what's going on, but they're playing it up as he's just trying to have fun in the tournament and not be so pressured after losing the title to Kenny Omega and holding it for so long. And, you know, he's come out, he's holding the balloons now, he's changed the color of his hair.
Yeah, he's got red hair now, so
he's a little more loose in the ring, which is fine, but him needing to like step down a notch has basically led to someone trying to take his place as the leader of Chaos, and now you have Jay White, the Switchblade, stepping up, just kicking ass and taking names, and it kind of unofficially started with Jim Ross. Unintentionally, I guess, but he pulled the Sami Callihan and just owned it and figured, fuck it, if I'm going to get heat for it, I'm just going to go with it, and he has done so ever since. And he's every match he's been involved with, whether it be a singles match for qualifying, you know, to qualify for the tournament or towards tournament points, or tag matches, he keeps stating claim to the leadership of Chaos. That is something that Rocky Romero and the boys don't necessarily like. So it's been really interesting to see him come out and say shit like, you know, that's my Rainmaker now. Like, I run the Chaos. So it's fucking crazy, and he's getting the push, man. I'm really surprised that this is going it's like at a breakneck pace, a breakneck speed.
He just debuted as an official, like, regular member of the roster in November. Because prior to that, he was a young lion.
Yeah, he was on excursion.
He went on excursion. You know, for you Ring of Honor fan, you'd recognize him as a regular member of Ring of Honor, because that's where he spent excursion. The entire time he was a contracted New Japan Pro Wrestling wrestler. And he comes back, he's got this Switchblade character. Cool. It's a cool character. They immediately give him Hiroshi Tanahashi. I was shocked by that. Hiroshi Tanahashi is defending the Intercontinental title at the time against Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom. I was like, wow, okay. Good points for that kid. The next night, he gets nominated by Kenny Omega to be the newest member of the Bullet Club. Turns him down, immediately puts himself in a war with Kenny Omega. And so you get Hiroshi Tanahashi on January 4th, and then starting January 5th, you stake claim at Kenny Omega's United States Heavyweight title. And then you join Chaos, which was weird for me because it's very much a heel character in a babyface group. But, what's Toru Yano? I mean, he's also a heelish character. Although he is trying not to cheat. That's a funny little thing he's doing. I love to hate Toru Yano. Go back to Jay White here. Gets Kenny Omega, a couple months later, he's taking that U.S. title from him, defending that title. And again, we're still talking less than a year. Yes, he dropped the title at the G1 special to Juice Robinson. It was what is now being known as like somewhat of an infamous match because of the Jim Ross incident. A week later, in his very first match in the G1 Climax, takes on not only a fellow Chaos member, the Chaos member that is the known leader of the group, because he's held on to that title, to the IWGP Heavyweight title for 700 plus days. Been the face of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and just like with a snap of a finger, Jay White says, nah, fuck that. This is my Chaos. That's my Rainmaker. You talk about a dastardly style of wrestling. You gotta watch all the G1. I highly recommend the G1 Climax. But that very first night with that main event of Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada, the things that he was doing in that match, as a fan of heels, I'm looking at it and I couldn't believe what I was seeing as it was happening, because it was like, wow, this kid figured it out. This kid figured out what a heel was supposed to be.
That he did. He
is making himself the most hated guy in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. You're taking on the Rainmaker. You are destroying him, and you're doing it in dastardly ways. Wasn't clean by any means.
Pissing the fans off left and right.
Pissing the fans off, and then going in and rubbing it in to Rocky Romero, who's there again. They're on commentary, guest commentary. But then they go to the back, where as they always do, and do the interview, and he just flat out said, "This is my Chaos now. I'm the new face of New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's my Rainmaker," and that hasn't changed. He hasn't skipped a beat. He's been dominating the tag matches. He's got 4 points in the G1 Climax thus far. Kazuchika Okada is he's reeling ever since. Can't even win tag matches. So it's a really interesting time. I mean, as a guy who's watched wrestling for the vast majority of your life, where do you think they're going with this? Does Jay White take over Chaos? Do we see new lineage, or is this one of those classic cases where the dastardly villain is going to get his in the end, or a little bit of both?
Well, again, you and I talked about the booking in New Japan, and just when you think you have it figured out, they come out of left field.
Yeah.
With something new and something different, something that you didn't expect. With them, obviously he's getting the push. I think he takes over Chaos by force. I think that they become a heel stable again.
You think so?
I think so, because on the opposite end of things, you have Civil War within Bullet Club. You've got the OGs being the heel faction, and everybody else is rooting for Kenny and Cody, especially now that they're on the same side.
Right.
There's your baby faces, whether you like it or not. So, yeah, I think Chaos goes heel, and he takes over. And quite honestly, at this point, we might even see the Rainmaker leave Chaos. I'm not saying he's going to go join Bullet Club or anything, but definitely leave Chaos and probably even be replaced. By whom, I couldn't tell you at this point, but it's going to be interesting to see.
It's really interesting that you have, because again, those who are not familiar with New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's a very faction-based company, very much. I mean, you look at the G1 Climax, 20 wrestlers, 19 of them are part of a faction. Only Kota Ibushi doesn't have a claim to anything. And of course, Taguchi Japan is kind of like a weird faction that's A lot of the guys are part-timers anyways.
Yeah.
But faction nonetheless. There's still some kind of affiliation. So you have the Bullet Club. They have their Civil War that's been going on really since January. It's still happening, even though now it's under a different... You got a different faction within that's kind of staking their claim. This time it's Tongans. And now you have Chaos that, pun intended, is got chaos going on. So it's really interesting that you have that. And I love it because you add storytelling to a great wrestling tournament. Because that's what the G1 Climax is all about. It's about wrestling, right? But let's add in storytelling. And that's what they've done. And I applaud everybody involved in making that happen because it just leads to wanting more every single time. I'm certainly glued to my TV when Jay White comes out now because I want, even for tag matches, that a lot of tag matches again right now for the G1 Climax, they're just to kind of like showcase the singles matches that are going to happen the next night for that block. But Jay White, what he's doing with Chaos, and he's been teaming with Yo, and poor Yo has been dealing with his shenanigans. I remember the first, it was night 2 when they had their tag match, and it was against Hiroshi Tanahashi, and I want to say David Finlay.
Yeah.
And he just like, I get my points tomorrow. Like I'm out of here.
Yeah, he dropped off the apron and it was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. I'll just get my points tomorrow.
Yeah, he ends up coming back because he wants to hurt Tanahashi, who suffered a pretty severe beatdown injuries in the match against Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Again, guys, you got to watch this tournament. It's been great. But yeah, again, I just love the fact that you have these stories being told while you also have great wrestling going on. That's a great wrestling show.
Absolutely. Man.
That's a great wrestling show. I don't even need to tell you which company I'm referring to when I say there's a company out there in Stamford, Connecticut that can learn from what these Japanese people are doing. Because they're fucking killing it right now.
I saw on my Google News feed there was a headline that says five problems with WWE's current booking, and I immediately laughed. And I'm like, "There's only 5?"
Yeah, 5 to the 10th power.
Yeah,
but it goes on the tension within G1 Climax goes beyond what you see on TV. And you brought to my attention a interview, which I look at as just a plain shoot interview with the guy from Block B, and Tetsuya Naito. He talked about some of the guys who were in this tournament. So some pretty controversial things. What jumped out to you right away with what you saw? Because it's a pretty long interview.
It's a long interview. You can find the interview over at New Japan's website at njpw1972.com/31430. It's a lengthy interview with Tetsuya Naito. And the first thing that stood out from the interview for me was how he was talking about the way participants are picked for the G1 tournament. And if you go on to read it, whether he likes it or not, he's kind of on the same side as Kenny Omega here, with Kenny Omega's controversial comments about the Japanese wrestlers not putting in the work and needing to step up their game. Essentially, Naito's saying the same thing. He's just saying it a different way. So he says, the interviewer asks, the block drawing isn't an issue with you. It's who was picked to enter in the first place. And Naito agrees. He's like, right. I said the same thing last year, but there are 19 shows in this tour. So because of that, the decision was made to have 20 wrestlers, right? All that's happening is that entrants are being picked to fill out spaces on the card. He goes on to say how you have guys who are, let's face it, they're just not realistic picks to win this tournament. So they're just fillers.
Yeah.
He's of the opinion of the G1 tournament should always be your top 20 guy, not just guys who are like part-timers or things of that nature. And he brought up a few names for sure. I mean, obviously he's got problems with Kenny Omega for the comments that Kenny Omega initially said, but He did say Tama Tonga. He's like, Tama Tonga really hasn't done anything. Why is he in the tournament? You know?
Yeah.
That's his beef. That's his beef with the tournament. And he's got a valid point. Let's face it, this is your probably the most prestigious tournament you have all year for your company. Yeah, you're supposed to have your top 20 guys, not just like 20 guys that fit the bill. So that's something I don't understand from a booking standpoint for New Japan, other than them to carry on plots. You're just advancing and furthering plots. That's it. I'm not necessarily complaining because they're doing it very well. I can't sit there and say that about any other company that puts on tournaments like. So much to their credit, they're pulling it off. Whether Naito agrees with their picks or not, they're pulling it off. I've watched 3 of the 4 nights as we're watching night number 4 now in the background, and man, I've had such a blast watching it, and I can't speak highly enough about it. This is way fucking better wrestling than what's been on most American TV right now.
Yeah, it's not just WWE that we're talking about. It's
Impact and Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just them that could take notes. Nobody else is failing the way WWE is, but they're not necessarily getting A+ either right now. But to add what Naito's saying, because I agree. I agree with him. We can make case, and I could be one of those guys that can make a case for Toru Yano and a Yoshihashi and a Toji Makabe, excuse me, and guys of that nature who are good workers. All 3 of them are good workers. Bad Luck Fale, another guy. Good workers, but they're not going to win this tournament. I think for each one of those guys, I'd give them less than a 1% chance of winning this tournament. They're fillers. And to Naito's point, I agree. I agree with what he is saying. Because there are guys that could have been used. Guys that, even though I could, as a wrestling fan that watches for the past year and a half and watching over 90% of New Japan shows that is on the streaming service, New Japan Pro Wrestling World, where I can say I could replace this guy with a guy that's actually been used quite a bit. How about a brand new heavyweight in Taichi? That, who Naito mentions in his
scathing interview.
Yeah, in his interview, yeah. Whatever you want to call it. Again, he's being pushed. He was in the triple threat match or a 3-way match at Dominion with Michael Elgin and Hiroki Goto for the Never Openweight Championship. Again, if he's in this tournament, I'm not picking him to win it, but I certainly like him better than Yoshihashi or Toru Yano. So if you're going to go with storyline purposes, I would still stick with 20 of either your top guys, obviously it would be your number 1, or 20 of your hottest guys that are actually relevant at the point. Tama Tonga is a perfect example because I know he's your pick, and I'm not saying that's not a good pick. But what I agree with him is Tama Tonga hasn't been around, and now he's in the G1 Climax. It just doesn't add to the mystique that is the G1 Climax when it's like, oh, where's he been? So I get that. Although Tama Tonga has a much better chance of winning, especially if you're going with storyline purposes. Now that he's part of this huge civil war within the Bullet Club, it works here, but it's just like the timing of all that was probably off maybe by a few more weeks. Maybe that should have happened at Kazuna Road instead of again, Kazuna Road's not a big deal, and the G1 again, I get all that stuff, and this is why I'm not a booker, because it's a hard job. It's an extremely hard job to pick and choose when you're going to do all these things, and that's why only a select few are actually really good at it, because booking's not easy. That being said, I agree with Naito to that extent. However, you are trying to make this the biggest tournament you possibly can, even if you have fillers like a Toru Yano and a Yoshihashi. I don't mean to pick on those guys at all, but those are the guys that are the blatantly obvious fillers. They are what they are. I say this. You give me... So every guy wrestles 9 matches. You give me 9 great matches. You can be a filler all you want. You can lose all 9 matches. Make them good matches.
Yeah, make them relevant.
And that's what they've done so far.
Yeah, that's what they've done. That's what they've done so far. I agree with Naito. It should be the top 20 guys. But let's face it, as big as New Japan is, I'm okay with most of the guys in the tournament.
Yeah.
Could I replace a few here and there? Yeah. Bad Luck Fale, again, not the best guy to be in a tournament for.
As he comes out.
Yeah, he he was gone for a couple months. Yeah, he had lost some weight and all that stuff. But does he? His absence, does he belong here at the tournament? Probably not. If you're going to be in it, make it relevant, make it count, and they have. They've decided to go with the storyline of him not giving a fuck about the other side of the Bullet Club, and he's there to just kick ass and take names.
Yeah.
And he has done that and then some. So yeah, he's now stuck in the tournament, and he doesn't care about his advancement in the tournament. He's just there to torture and take revenge on people. And he has definitely done that. A guy like Toru Yano, does he belong in the tournament? Not necessarily. Would I replace him? Yeah, I would have replaced him because he's not doing anything to... I mean, he's wrestling good matches, but he's not doing anything to advance his character into something meaningful for the tournament. He's like the class clown right now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. And I get it, wrestling's a variety show, or at least a good wrestling show is a variety show, but you're not necessarily looking for that in a tournament like the G1.
No.
So that's what's very wishy-washy for me this time around.
What I'm wondering is if there was opportunities to take the G1, and again, this is the first time that it's ever been done, all 19 shows in English, all shows in English, whether it's 19 or less. Or more. You're westernizing your product. Was there opportunities to get guys from other companies, and would that have helped? You know, the one that pops in everyone's head was Cody an option, and was it just a scheduling thing? Did he not want to do it? Was he asked? You know, and there's other guys that leads to wonder. Well, what about Jay Lethal doing it? Because you saw that with Chris Sabin in the Best of Super Junior. You know, he came from Ring of Honor and he did that tournament. You know, would that have worked for this tournament? You know, maybe pick from somebody from a different company. It
definitely would have worked with this tournament. They obviously have partnerships with other federations or other organizations. To me, that's always been one of the most favorite gimmicks that I've ever come in contact and loved in professional wrestling is the tournament.
Yeah.
For me, that's what a tournament is. It's always your best guys. You know, if it's a tournament for a specific title, the top 8 guys that are vying for that title. Situations like that. It should always be like that for me. So if you have those tools and you're affiliated with these other companies, hell yeah. Go grab someone from AAA. Go grab someone from Impact. Go, make use of that talent and make it a little more legitimate, or at least a little more legitimate looking.
Yeah.
But this has just literally become 20 guys who have active storylines going on within the company. That's that. They're going to play out a little more, and obviously someone's going to win the tournament and going to get a shot at Wrestle Kingdom at the IWGP Heavyweight title. Those are given, but this is what we're stuck with. I'll tell you one thing. I really think Tama Tonga is... let me scratch that. Not just Tama Tonga. I think pretty much every Bullet Club member, because of the circumstance of the Civil War, they're going to destroy each other by the end of the tournament, leaving one top Bullet Club member to advance and possibly win the entire tournament, but they're also going to ruin just about everybody else's chances, any chance they get.
Yeah.
Like the G1 is going to suffer because that is the collateral damage, as it were, for the Civil War going on between the Bullet Club. I think Tama Tonga wins Block A. That takes out Kenny Omega, so Kenny Omega no longer has...
Tama Tonga's in Block B.
I'm sorry, Block B.
Right. But you're on the right track, though.
So that would take Kenny Omega out of the running to win the tournament. Now you have Tama Tonga winning Block B to take on whoever's going to win Block A, and I think that's probably the overall bigger picture story that we're going to be experiencing post the tournament.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're seeing there's 2 things I want to point out. One, I want that Toru Yano Vitruvian Man shirt. I just think it's hilarious. I'm not the type of guy that would buy a lot of Toru Yano merchandise, but I want that shirt. and Taka So there's potential that Zack Sabre Jr. is going to do the Evolve Progress tour. I hope he brings Taka if he does.
Oh man, I would love to see that. Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with exactly what you're saying. I look at it as a missed opportunity of grabbing international talent. I'm not saying you got Ring of Honor's Hangman Page. He's not, as far as my understanding goes, he's not contracted with New Japan Pro Wrestling. That might be the only guy that they have that has no. I mean, Zack Sabre Jr. is a freelancer, but it's not like doesn't do a whole lot of New Japan shows. So.
You know what though? All year we've been saying they want to go global.
Yeah.
And expand their company. They're going to have growing pains, and I think this is one of the growing pains, unfortunately.
Yeah. And again, it's not to take away from the tournament. We're not telling you not to watch it. It's been great,
dude. It's been a fucking blast.
Yeah. I love this part with Toriano where he doesn't want to take any hits and he's making all those yelling noises. He's a funny guy. Toriano, as we mentioned, though, he's a great worker. And he knows how to take a bump. That's for sure. So even though we say, yeah, you can go without him, you can, because I don't really see anybody, if we were betting on this, taking Toriano or even the odds of taking Toriano, because it's just not going to happen. He's not going to main event Wrestle Kingdom. It's just not going to happen. At least not with the way he's going.
Right.
So, but yeah, Ring of Honor, the closest partnership. Again, I said Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal would have been perfect for a tournament of this nature. Cody, I don't know if he was asked, if it was brought to his attention, and maybe it's a scheduling thing, but Cody would have been a great fit. Perfect for Block A. And, I would love to have seen a Cody versus Hangman Page match. And I think we will someday. But, man, I would love to have seen that at the G1. There's other guys, you could name. And, again, you got Don Callis, who works for Impact Wrestling. There's guys there. How about a guy that's affiliated with 3 companies to come in and do a tour in Japan in Johnny Impact or Johnny Mundo, whatever you want to call him. He'd been perfect for a tournament like this. So again, I'm not saying they didn't do any of this. I don't know. I don't know what the bookers were doing, but it just really seems that Naito is onto something here. That if you're going to make this huge tournament where you got 20 guys, because the G1 wasn't always 20 people. If you're going to do 20 guys, it needs to be 20 elite players. Obviously Naito belongs there because he's the defending champion. How we feel about Kenny Omega being in there. And I was reminded earlier this week that Kenny Omega isn't the first IWGP Heavyweight Champion to do this. It's been done before. None of them have ever won the tournament, but there have been champions in the tournament before. So fair point. Still doesn't mean I want it to happen. Other than the fact that I get to see Kenny Omega matches, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, he's onto something here, and I agree to what he's saying, but again, as I said earlier, if you're going to give us top quality matches, then I can look past it. However, for the 29th G1 Climax, you might want to really pay attention to who you put in that tournament, because it's never going to stand out the way that they want it to stand out internationally if you're not going to have, if you're going to continue to do 20 elite players. If you're going to have, let's say 14 elite players and six guys that are fillers, it doesn't work.
I never thought I'd be saying this, but this is where the WWE actually gets something right. And,
Jesus.
With their tournaments that they've had as of late, you've got the Mae Young Classic, which is going a second year.
Yep.
You've had the UK tournament,
which had a second year.
You've had the Cruiserweight Classic, which,
oh my God,
again, awesome tournaments. All 3 of them. That's what New Japan needs to do, especially with their Granddaddy tournament here.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a fucking swing and a miss on a technical level. Like I said, it's really fucking entertaining. So I'm willing to be like, okay, I'll let it slide. But yeah, technically speaking, man, I think the listeners should mark it on their calendars. This is probably the first episode in a long fucking time that the WWE gets a plus next to their name.
It absolutely ain't over yet, because there's some things I gotta say. There's some things I gotta get off my chest before we turn this microphone off. We got more tournaments happening this year, and I don't want to get too much into them because they're not even booked yet, but you got the World Tag League that's going to happen towards the end of the year. There's another opportunity right there. There's another opportunity. You figure you're going to have
bring teams in from literally all over the world.
Yeah.
Let's see some
bring the Briscoes back to New Japan.
Bring the Briscoes. Bring a couple of the Mexican constituents.
Yeah.
You've got access to guys in New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah,
come on,
exactly.
let's see those teams.
England.
Yeah, let's see those teams.
I would love to see Aussie Open and do the World Tag League. I love those guys.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean? So it's again, they can't do that because they're not. I was gonna say British Strong Style, but they're affiliated with WWE, so that's not gonna happen. But yeah, you have an opportunity there to highlight tag teams from all over the world. So, hopefully enough guys make some noise. Say kind of hey, this ain't working. It's obviously you're doing well. They're selling out their venues that they go to. I don't know if the Creek Hall is sold out here, but that's a pretty small venue. So they usually do well there. That's one thing to sell out these arenas. But again, you're also talking about subscriptions and getting people to watch. We're plugging it. We want you to watch it. We have no incentive for you to do it other than the fact that we want you to #support professional wrestling. And we know if you like wrestling, you'd be really entertained by what you see. But it is a missed opportunity from them. It really is. And I do agree with Naito. And I appreciate the fact that he's one of those guys that just is able to say, fuck it. Like, what we're doing is not exactly 100% what we should be doing. Calling them on essentially their bullshit. So I applaud them on that. Speaking of bullshit and things of that nature, segueing off here a little bit, or a lot, I should say, we're going to go to Canada and...
Blame Canada.
We're going to go to Canada here, and we're going to talk about Bret the Hitman Hart. And he's got a little bit of a civil war going on of his own.
Fuck, man. I cannot honestly remember the last time Bret Hart opened his mouth and there was not some sort of controversy. And I want to say in the past 2 years.
Real quick here, it just seems like the Bret Hart that I grew up watching, and and even going back to his older tapes, was such a soft-spoken guy. It's like now that he's retired, he's
letting it all out.
Yeah,
man.
it's just it's like you come home from a long fucking shift at work, and you just said take off all your dirty laundry, and you're just airing it for everyone to see. That's what he's doing.
It's like he's playing catch up.
Yeah.
Let's go back a few months. A few months. You've got the WWE Hall of Fame happening.
Hall of Shame. Remember that episode?
That's right. Yeah, that's a past episode.
Fucking bullshit.
Mark Henry was speaking at the event, and
his Hall of Fame speech.
Yeah, he basically called out Martha Hart, who, if you don't know, is the widow of Owen Hart. And he begged and pleaded with her with a tear in his eye. Please, Martha, please let Owen be a part of the Hall of Fame. And ever since then, there's the debate, the fire under this debate has been sparked again. Not just by wrestling fans, but people in the industry, obviously. Mark Henry. Bret Hart recently chose to address it in a podcast. I don't remember the name of the podcast he was on. It might have been the Gorilla Position, but he decided to open his mouth and say what he felt was right about Owen's widow not letting him be a part of any kind of Hall of Fame. Not just the WWE's, mind you, but also the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. So she wants her family and the children, she wants them to have nothing to do with professional wrestling. He made it seem like he has not seen his nephews and nieces, and they aren't allowed to see the rest of the family. Let's face it, I think we've all been through that at one time or another with our own respective family, to where some shit like that goes on. But again, it doesn't change things. Bret Hart opens his mouth, he says a few things, and now all of a sudden the pot is being stirred again. She has came out and rebutted him. He in turn has rebutted her back. It's nothing pretty. she said that it was some of the stuff he was saying was like cruel and unusual punishment, and he basically fired back like, you know what, me not being able to see family, and Owen not getting the just due for the time and effort and the blood, sweat, and the tears that he put into his career. That's cruel and unusual to Bret Hart. So it has been a very intriguing back and forth between those parties. It doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. This lady's hell-bent on divorcing her family from professional wrestling. Bret also said that one of the kids of one of the Hart brothers' daughters, I don't think it's Owen's daughter, unless it's Owen's daughter having a child, but one of the youngest kids is named Owen. And, for a family that wants nothing to do with professional wrestling, like, how does that work?
Yeah.
So, it's been very interesting. And like I said, Bret Hart letting it all hang out, throwing all this shit out. It doesn't seem like he's trying to stop either.
As a fan, I mean, as far as the family aspect of what's happening here, I there's really no comment, because I'm not part of that. But as a fan of professional wrestling, I look at the Hall of Fame and I try my hardest, and I don't want to put myself in her shoes, because then I would know what that kind of loss is. And we both dealt with losses in our life.
Plus, I hear heels are pretty uncomfortable.
Heels are very uncomfortable, but you have a woman who lost her husband, the father of her children. Was obviously a tragic incident in May of 1999 at the Over the Edge pay-per-view. It's all because of professional wrestling, whether it was an accident or on purpose, because I've heard that as a possibility, and I'm not getting into that, but it's been almost 20 years, and that's still talked about.
Of course.
So conspiracy. I couldn't think of the word conspiracy. I digress on that, but you have somebody who lost her husband, and it happened in a wrestling ring. Obviously, it took her a long time to grieve, and everybody has their right to grieve. And she made this decision to where she doesn't want any part of it. She doesn't want her kids to have any part of it. And I get that. I do. I really do. I don't know what it's like to lose a significant other, and I don't want to know, especially at this point in my life. If my wife was in professional wrestling and she was tragically killed in an incident like this, I would probably separate myself from the product too. Would I separate myself from the product 19 years? I don't know. And not only that, but it's different too, because I love the product, where even when he was alive, she wasn't much of a fan of professional wrestling. So you have to keep that in mind as well. But either way, I look at it as this. Owen Hart had a legacy, whether she wants to admit it or not. He had a legacy in that ring. He meant something to a lot of people. Wrestlers, people behind the scenes, referees, and of course the fans, myself included. A huge part of professional wrestling and the WWE. He needs to be in the Hall. He needs that recognition. And I think a lot of it too, and this might sound selfish to her, but is for all those people who he has impacted through his in-ring work, and then of course the stuff behind the scenes of being, the good-hearted guy that he was, the great ribber that he was. All that needs to be recognized. I'm not saying sell over the rights so they can put him in the new 2K WWE game or this or that, but give him the one night where his name is solidified. And you and I don't want to spoil anything, but you and I are going to talk about Hall of Fame more in this show. Trust me on that. But I don't have the greatest respect for the WWE Hall of Fame at this point. There was a time where I did, but there's some propaganda behind it all. But Owen Hart is one of those things that is legitimate and always will be legitimate. So whether it's the WWE Hall of Fame or it's the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame or both, he needs to be in it because of what he was to professional wrestling. And even though he died in a wrestling ring, it wasn't like his legacy died that night. And that's I think in his own stubborn way, I think that's kind of what Bret Hart's trying to say. Obviously, he's not saying it the correct way. He's being very much a dick. And that's just who Bret's become throughout the course of his retirement. Very bitter old man at this point in his life, but
who looks like an old woman.
Who looks like an old woman. I love that cowboy hat picture that he had in that documentary. I know it was a TV show I'd never seen, but oh my god, it looks ridiculous. But in my own humble opinion, Owen Hart should be recognized for all of his contributions to professional wrestling because of, obviously for his own legacy. And it's something that his kids should, they should be proud of the fact that his dad was this great wrestler, because he worked so hard to become that. It wasn't just, oh yeah, he was good at it. He worked hard to be what he was. And they shouldn't be sheltered from that, but I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, she's a bad parent for that or anything like that. And I don't know if they are able to see that. I mean, they're older now, of course, so I'm sure they have. But as far as everybody else, the Mark Henrys who cried during his Hall of Fame speech, begging Martha to bring him in because of what Owen Hart meant to him. And there's a lot of other guys that would agree, a lot of guys and girls that would agree that of all that. And in fans, it's about a celebration at this point. Obviously he was taken too soon, and even if you do it next year, 20 years later, of his untimely passing, what you have is a celebration of a guy that, even though he was taken away too soon, his legacy is higher than guys. A lot of guys who spent a whole career doing what they do. That just shows you how good he was. His legacy deserves to be recognized. And I think she's kind of missing that point.
Now, earlier you used the term conspiracy theory, but I would like to call it a coincidence. Thank you.
I see what you did there.
Tip your waitress, try the veal. It's to die for. You know what? Let's take a break. Let's go pay some bills, and we'll come back. We'll come back with some very interesting Hall of Fame news. Stay tuned.
Hello, wrestling fans. Matt here, and I have a question for you. Do you think you know more about wrestling than the 20x20 Ring Crew? Well, now's your chance. Starting this September, your boys at the 20x20 Ring Crew will be starting a brand new monthly contest where we test your knowledge on the history of professional wrestling. Each week, you'll have an opportunity to answer a brand new question. Be one of the first 20 people to answer correctly, and you'll be entered in a drawing to win cool prizes. I'm talking pops, figures, shirts, DVDs, Blu-rays, and much more. Visit 20by20crew.com/podcast/Instagram for more details. And now, enjoy more of the show. Welcome back, wrestling fans. Thanks for sticking around and helping us pay some bills. So, you mentioned earlier, WWE got complimented. Doesn't happen very often on the show.
Yeah. Not by me, anyway. I mean, certainly not by you, but not by me.
As always, I have to say that I am not a WWE hater. I am a WWE fan that is just pissed off. Pissed off at the company. I do subscribe to WWE Network. If you haven't already subscribed, you can subscribe through us. 20x20crew.com/podcast/WWE Network. That's all one word. And I watched, like many, Extreme Rules. I watched it the night after.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I didn't watch it live, so I can fast forward through the 20 minutes video packages for every goddamn match.
Yeah.
It's almost 4 hours long, but like 2 hours is video packages. It's like enough, all right? If you assume that people already watched Raw, because like you watch Raw and you show the replay of what happened at the beginning of the show like 6 times. In case you missed it, most of the people have been watching it since it first started. Anyways, Extreme Rules, it was a pretty bad show. Couple good standout things, but I was talking to some people about WWE, and a good friend of ours, listener to the show, made a mention that I'm obviously not a WWE supporter at this point. And he's right. I'm not. And one of the reasons why I'm not is could be simplified with what they did with Jeff Hardy and Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, Jeff Hardy and Shinsuke Nakamura had a match on an episode of SmackDown that ended in controversy, and it started a rivalry. And Shinsuke has not been on TV for a few weeks, minus like maybe an interview here or there. Very small bits. And then Jeff Hardy's been doing this whole bit where he's pretty much lost it again. He's painting his face again and all that shit. Almost broken kind of thing. And he wants Shinsuke. He's calling out Shinsuke. And the match is made. Shinsuke Nakamura challenging Jeff Hardy for the United States Championship at Extreme Rules. And I'm just like, okay, I'm intrigued by that. I'm not the biggest Jeff Hardy fan in the world. I never have been. But he can put on a good match, and Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be a very interesting opponent for him. Cool, let's do it. So Jeff Hardy comes out, and he's ready for this match. Shinsuke comes out, ready for the match, and it ends with a low blow that Shinsuke Nakamura, now it's pretty much his finisher. Now is a low blow. And the match ends in 30 seconds. And all that build-up, again, 20-minute video packages, ends in a 30-second match. And then to top it all off, Randy Orton comes back from his injury. I forget what his injury was. I don't care. And he comes back, and you think, oh, he's going to go after Shinsuke. No, he goes after Jeff Hardy, and he low blows him. Jeff Hardy's on the ground. He goes to, he grabs his legs, and he stomps in between, and then leaves, and then that's the end of everything. And I'm just left thinking to myself, what am I doing watching this bullshit? Like, they did it again. They build up a match that this is going to be a good match. And they don't give you anything. They give you this 30-second low blow fiasco, and leaves me with more questions than answers. And we'll just watch SmackDown to get some answers. No, fuck you. I'm not watching this bullshit anymore. I deleted it off the DVR. I was like, I'm not watching it. I'm not watching it. I wasted my time with Extreme Rules. You guys tell me what happened. But that's one of the many reasons why I give WWE such bad remarks and bad reviews, because it's bullshit after bullshit after bullshit. Same thing with the Dolph Ziggler Seth Rollins match. 30-minute Iron Man match, and you have to continue to tell fucking stories throughout the entire match. Just have a goddamn match. Just have the match. That's what Raw's for, to tell your little stories. Do it then. Anyways, that's my gripe. WWE wasn't going to get off the hook that easily. But I want to talk about something that happened at Extreme Rules. You brought it to my attention the day of, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to watch. Plus, I had other better things to watch that night. We saw the return of, as far as the WWE Hall of Fame, of Hulk Hogan. And he was also at the venue, the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hello, Pittsburgh. And he was there. He addressed the locker room. And you told me before we started recording that he also addressed, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the live crowd, but it just wasn't taped nor obviously aired on the WWE Network.
From what I understand, he approached the locker room.
Yes, that much I knew.
And made his presence known, and made his rounds for apologies. And then apparently he also addressed the crowd, but to my knowledge, there's no videotape or recording of this. Now, until something surfaces, because let's face it, we live in that day and age where someone somewhere, if it happened in that arena, there's got to be some sort of audio or video of it.
It's not like the Madison Square Garden incident in the mid-'90s. Or thankfully that those guys snuck in camcorder. Now everyone's got cell phones, smartphones with cameras.
So if it happened then someone out there's got to have footage. So I'm leaving it at that. But apparently,
Okay.
from what I heard, there was he did a speech and addressed the crowd, and it just wasn't recorded for television or what have you.
Now, is there any remarks of
future video packages? No.
how the crowd took Hogan? Was there a pop? Was there...
No, I didn't get any of that either, which is why I'm leaving it as just speculation at this point.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that he did address the locker room, and there was definitely some tension, most notably from Titus O'Neil, who had a huge problem with Hogan being reinstated to the company, and rightfully so. I mean, he is obviously entitled to his opinion and his feelings and the whole shebang. He should be upset for what Hogan said. The New Day ends up putting out a statement on Twitter. I think it was Kofi Kingston that actually did it.
Yeah, it was.
He puts out a statement on Twitter, and he articulated exactly what needed to be said. And he did it with respect and admiration for his fellow talent and the company, and he did it very classy. Kofi Kingston acting like a class act, and he's absolutely right in the things that he said. You know, this should not affect their performance because it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to affect their performance. It doesn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They all have to get along. And, you know, racism has always been around, and, you know, are they going to be a little bit leery of working around and with Hulk Hogan? Of course. And, again, that is to be expected. But for Kofi Kingston and the New Day, they're moving on. They're going to continue to do their thing, and they took the high road on this one. And, again, kudos to Kofi Kingston and the New Day. I myself, self-admittedly, I don't know that I would have took that route. I don't think I could have been the bigger person if I had someone return to my place of work who blatantly badmouthed me in a racist fashion. As a matter of fact, that actually happened at my 9 to 5 with someone I work with after our President Donald Trump got elected. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother podcast. But you know, I did not take the high road, and I let this person have it. So, yeah.
You and I are both of Latino descent, both Mexican Americans, and you and I both felt the immediate outcome from the ignorant supporters of Donald Trump.
Yes.
And none of it, needs to be bared repeating. But yeah, it was the same thing. And it's one of those things, the place that I was working at the time, where it wasn't an everyday occurrence, but it was a common thing. You know, being darker skinned in a very Caucasian community. There was definitely times where I was outcasted, and I was leaving it at that. And it didn't bother me because where I grew up, and it was the same thing, just with a different race that was excluding me from their reindeer games, if you will. I'm a huge Rudolph fan, if you couldn't tell. And I make light of the situation because it was one of those things where I could move on. And not that anybody should make light of the situation, but the way that I took the Kofi Kingston, or I should say the whole New Day response, was their way of moving on from what happened. Me, I make light of situations. Them, they come out and make formal statements pretty much saying that where it was actually, and I quote, stated that, how do we feel? Indifferent. We are not happy, sad, or resentful. Who WWE puts into the Hall of Fame is totally and completely up to the company, and from a career standpoint, there is no argument whether or not Hogan should have his place. So their point there is saying, you do whatever you want, we're going to do what we've already been doing. That's how they move on. They look at it as, you know what, I don't like what he said. I don't necessarily think that at this point, they didn't come out and say, we forgive Hogan, but they just said, look, we got a job to do. We got a job to do, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do our job, and we're going to do it well, because that's what the fans and the company expect from us. And it was a very professional and very classy thing to say, and I applaud all three of them. Because I think it's pretty apparent that all three were involved in that statement. Those guys are pretty close niche outside of the wrestling ring, and I'm pretty sure they had a discussion about it, especially after Sunday night. Obviously, anytime we talk about racism or racial slurs and things of that nature, it's always going to be a touchy subject, and it's always interesting to see how people respond to it and overcome that. And I think it's really, really good for them that they're able to just look past it and say, you know what, we're not going to let what he said outweigh what we're doing and what we've become in this company. So, congrats to them. Mark Henry has come out and said, he's willing to have Hogan's back if he's willing to put in the work. He was one of the guys that spoke up after Hogan, said his piece, and it's like, hey, do you mean what you say? Is it just talk, or you willing to put in the work to show everybody that you are genuine in what you said? I'm not here to sympathize for Hogan, because anyone that knows me knows I would never sympathize for Hogan. I don't like Hulk Hogan. I can't stand the guy, and for what he is to professional wrestling. And but anyways, move on from that. He said something really bad. The whole world knows it. The whole world knows it. And he's been living with this for a long time. Years. And obviously he's doing well for himself. He won a nice little lawsuit last year or 2 years ago. Financially he's doing fine, but I gotta imagine he's been outcasted by a lot of people, especially within the business, for what he said, for one reason or another. And it could be, well, you got too much heat on you right now, I don't want anything part of that selfish reason, or if it's, you really hurt me by what you said, whether you're black or not, because what he said should offend people that are not just of black skin. Just anybody that has common sense and a heart. It's just like, what the hell, man? It's just like, it's just, and I'm a little indifferent on it too, because it's one of those things that, and it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right what he said, but we've seen people do racial bashing in public places, in business meetings, like the Papa John's guy. And it took him like multiple occurrences to finally be ousted of the company, by the way. It wasn't just like, one time and he's out. It was an ongoing thing with this dude. But the Hogan tape where he says the word repeatedly, and it's at the comfort of his own home, and it's under a hidden microphone. Again, I'm not saying what he's saying is right, but it's just, you have to kind of put yourself in a situation where you're at home and you say some things that you wouldn't want anybody else to hear. Whether it's right or wrong, whether it's racial or not, I'm sure many of us have those skeletons in our closets where it's like, man, if somebody recorded me, I'd be in some shit. There's a part of me that's like, is it necessarily fair that we vilify one guy because he's Hulk Hogan? Because there's a laundry list of guys that have done things of this nature or other things that have gotten away with less than a slap on the wrist. You know, if we were talking about the Brooklyn Brawler, would we be talking about it? You know, does the fact that it's Hulk Hogan have everything to do with it? You know, and keep in mind, too, the audacity of Vince McMahon being the guy suspending him when he has said that word on live TV. Actually, I take that back. It wasn't live TV. It was SmackDown before it was SmackDown Live, and they never edited it out.
Yeah.
So, again, for anybody that's going to come after me, hold your fucking horses, because I'm not saying that Hogan, it's okay for Hogan to say that because it was the comfort of his own home and it was, you know, a hidden microphone or anything like that. What he said was bullshit, and what he said, you know, definitely needs to be talked about a lot more, because that's something that we're not doing. We do a lot of pointing the fingers in society, and, you know, you're this and you're that, but nobody's willing to sit down and have a conversation about it. Why does Hulk Hogan feel that way? Why would he say something like that? There's not enough of that. There's not enough, and I hope that's what Mark Henry means by, are you willing to prove it? Have a conversation with the guy. Talk it out. And then, obviously, while you're hearing him, make sure that he's hearing you. And I hope that's what's happening, instead of just, well, I don't want to work with him because he's a racist asshole, and that's that. Because then you're no better. If that's the way that you perceive these type of situations, you're no better. Rise above. And I really think that's what Mark Henry's doing, but he's also a seasoned veteran that's been doing this a long time, and he knows Hulk Hogan very well. You know, I liked what the New Day said on social media, but I would hope they would do the same thing as far as actions being taken. I understand, do your job and continue to do your job, but also it still bothers you. That's why you're talking about it. That's why you brought it up on social media. Other than that, if it didn't bother you, then you don't make this long post. You move on. You ignore, or not necessarily ignore it, but you shrug it off and say that's not I don't care.
How different of a situation do you think this would be if Hulk Hogan said what he said, but the entirety of his career in the public eye, he wasn't Hulk Hogan. He was just Terry Bollea. So, like, he played a character on TV and in the ring.
Yeah.
And that's it. When everything else he did, he was under his real name. How much of the situation does that change, do you think?
I think the Hulk Hogan legacy isn't as heavily affected as it is now, because you can separate the two. Right now, we look at it as Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea as the same thing. It's the
same person, right?
You know, and which technically they are, but...
Well, depending on parts of the Gawker trial, well...
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Hulk Hogan obviously is the American hero that everybody, especially in the 80s and early 90s, grew up believing in. And he was this phenomenon that not necessarily represents who Terry Bollea is. Who is Terry Bollea? I don't know.
At this point, I don't think he knows.
Yeah, I don't think. Did he change it? Is he no longer Bollea? Isn't he actually Terry Hogan now?
That I don't know.
Or
yeah.
Did he go like full on like Ultimate Warrior where he just changed his name completely?
I don't know. I won't speculate.
But yeah, it's a really tough subject, obviously, and as far as the racial slurs, I mean, there's definitely Hulk Hogan deserved to eat shit for what he said. You know, the old Triple H line, learn to eat shit and like the way it tastes. That's very much deserved. Should it necessarily destroy his entire legacy? I'm not so sure about that.
No, I disagree with that notion. It shouldn't. at least when it comes to professional wrestling. I mean, it doesn't change any of the stuff he has done for the industry and in its entirety. That'll never be changed. You know, whether he said a specific word or not. I mean, he still did what he did in the ring, and he still made that money, and he still affected the industry that way. That can never be taken away from him. Much like Owen Hart and the whole debacle with his wife. You know, obviously this is the issue with Owen Hart isn't about racism, but you still can't. The point is, you can't change what he already did in the business. It's done. There's no going back.
I think the most disturbing part of this is that we took Hulk Hogan, or not we, but the WWE took Hulk Hogan and outcasted him in the same manner that they outcasted the name of Chris Benoit. That's what I mean by it's not necessarily fair. I mean, you erased everything about him. You know, other than what was on the WWE Network and archived footage, you erased every aspect of Hulk Hogan. He is now the name that, you know, he's become the Voldemort. You know, he who shall not be named. I'm sorry for anybody that disagrees with me and calls me whatever because of this, but we're not talking about the same thing when we're talking about the Chris Benoit situation. We're just not. I'm sorry, we're not. Nobody should be vilified in that manner because of this instance. It just shouldn't be. Again, should he eat shit? Of course. Of course. You want to keep him off of WWE programming? Of course. You don't want him around your talent? Of course. I get that. But to completely erase his name, or at least attempt to, totally uncalled for. And let's also face facts here. The WWE didn't do that because of your feelings. They did it because of your money and how it would affect merchandise sales and ticket sales and WWE Network sales.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand about the situation. Yeah, the WWE didn't do that for all the black people out there, all the black fans.
I'm sorry, but they didn't.
They didn't. It was a business move. That's all it was. Separate us as far away from this dude as possible because we still got t-shirts to sell and pay-per-views and network subscriptions and, you know, all this other stuff to you, the fans.
Yep.
And guess what? When it comes to business, it doesn't matter what color you are. It just doesn't. The only color that matters is green.
That's it. They would sell out their own family members, and they have.
And they have.
To make money. That's just the way it goes. The other thing too is the Hall of Fame, and you and I talked about it before the show. Again, you hit on it very nicely. Nobody can take away the legacy of Hulk Hogan / Hulkamania. And my opinion doesn't matter of Hulk Hogan. I can't stand the guy. I've made that very clear since episode 1. But my opinion doesn't matter. He was a huge part of the revolution of professional wrestling, and his name is synonymous with household names in wrestling. Guys didn't become household names, at least on a domestic level that you know, outside of the territories, other than Hulk Hogan. He was that first guy to do that, and you can't take that away. And the New Day touched on it. You can't take that away. So why take away the Hall of Fame? Why take him out of the Hall of Fame? And it goes back to what we just said, because we have to separate our guy. We have to erase him from everything. And also, too, to not promote our show, but to promote our show, you go back to the Hall of Shame episode where the Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame, is fucking bullshit. It's propaganda. It's the reason why Jeff Jarrett's in the Hall of Fame. Propaganda.
Fuck.
Do what you can do for me. Obviously, Hulk Hogan can't do shit for me right now because he's a racist asshole. At least that's what everybody thinks he is. And whether he is or he isn't, that's what everybody thinks he is. So he can't do anything for us right now. Get rid of him. Get rid of him, because having him in there with the likes of, Andre the Giant and Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mick Foley and all these guys, well, you can't have him associated with that, because then they all become racist assholes, and everybody's merchandise, because that's what matters, merchandise. Everybody's merchandise fails. Nobody's going to watch the Hall of Fame. Nobody's going to watch our pay-per-views. Nobody's going to go to our house shows. This is how juvenile this company is, that the fact that that's their first reaction. Oh, erase, erase, erase. You can't. You cannot do that. So what was the point of taking them away? Anytime that you are in a Hall of Fame for any thing, any sport, we'll stick with sports for this point, but you are inducted to the Hall of Fame. You're inducted to the Hall of Fame for a reason. You should be. For Hulk Hogan's case, for helping put not only WWE but wrestling on a whole nother platform for the audience to see. And for, his contributions to WrestleMania, and for this and that, and his successes in the ring, for, what have you. And all those contributions, and is rewarded by a Hall of Fame. And he got that. His contributions wasn't because he was nice to black people. He was inducted because of his contributions to professional wrestling. So because of what he said should not equate to erasing his entire legacy from professional wrestling, or in this case WWE. You can reprimand him. You can say that, we at the WWE don't agree with what he says and what have you, and, that's great. You shouldn't agree. But you don't strip somebody of an achievement just like that. It's propaganda. Then what is the point of being in a Hall of Fame? If you commit a crime or you do something bad, then you're not a Hall of Famer anymore? Let's look at Pete Rose. Now, Pete Rose obviously isn't in the Hall of Fame, for those keeping track at home. But what if he was inducted into a Hall of Fame and then it came out he gambled on baseball while he was a manager for the Cincinnati Reds, not as a player? Did we take away everything he did as a player? I mean, they already have. They've already done it. But what if he was already inducted? What if he already was in Cooperstown? Do we say, oh, remove him, get him out of there, get him out of there? No, you shouldn't. What he did for professional baseball, for Major League Baseball, does not equate to him gambling as when he's not a player anymore. What he did was stupid. There's no doubt about it. What Hulk Hogan did was stupid. I don't care if it should never have been taped or the comfort of his own home. You're caught. Either way, you're caught. The whole world knows it. What you said was stupid. It was beyond stupid. But it should not equate to you having your entire legacy stripped away. It just shouldn't. And I get a lot of heat for this, but I go back to Chris Benoit, who's not in the Hall of Fame, who never will be in the Hall of Fame, at least WWE. We can't strip what he did for professional wrestling. What he did to his family is horrendous. There's no doubt about that. It's one of the saddest stories in professional wrestling. But you can't take away what he did for the profession. You can't. So when we're talking about achievements, we don't strip people from achievements that they've already accomplished because they did something wrong. That's just not. That's not how you handle a situation. How Major League Baseball has handled the Pete Rose situation has been very poorly done. Still has to this day. I don't know if he'll ever be in the Hall of Fame. He'll probably be in the Hall of Fame once he's passed.
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
But you know what? Not to get too much off topic here, but the whole situation with Pete Rose, obviously now the United States government has passed legal sports gambling.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that one of the listeners asked me. It was like, do you think Pete Rose will be inducted into the Hall of Fame now that gambling is legal? And you know what? there has been stranger things that have happened in this world, so I'm not going to say no. But you're absolutely right. You shouldn't have your legacy, good or bad, no matter how you achieved it. You're a part of professional wrestling or sports or what have you, whatever profession you're in. You do something stupid, granted, you did it, you're stupid, and you shouldn't have done it, and that's that. But if you didn't do any of that in the ring, and it's not part of that legacy, then if the two are separate, they should stay separate.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You summed it up in a very short period of time. That's exactly how I feel about the situation. It sucks. It sucks because I've had this conversation with people, and they don't seem to understand it. I'm not pro Hogan. I'm not talking about my resentment for the character Hulk Hogan and all that stuff. I'm not pro Hogan in the sense that I am sympathizing with what he did, because I'm not. What I'm saying is that everything that, beyond guys being upset at Hogan and wanting to see action out of him other than just words and saying, I'm sorry, guys, that's one thing. But everything else, as you said, is separate, and we should not be in the business of tarnishing legacies when this has nothing to do with anything that he's done in that ring. And it's unfortunate. If I'm Hulk Hogan, I'm doing everything I can to make this right. He better be sincere. And I hope he does. I hope he does make it right, because I as much as I can't stand the dude, I'd hate to see a legacy destroyed because of a stupid rant that he made. I don't know Hulk Hogan. I don't know what his true feelings are on the matter. But if he's listening to this show, thanks for listening. But if you're not sincere, don't show up. Don't show up, because you're gonna get caught. You're not dealing with a bunch of idiots here. You know, you got guys like Mark Henry, you got guys like the New Day and Titus and Big E and I said Titus and Kofi and Big E and Xavier Woods. Titus O'Neil is another guy that's been very outspoken, of course. And you know, you're not dealing with a bunch of morons here. There's very intelligent guys. They've proved that time and time again, and they're gonna call you on your shit if you're bullshitting. So if you're not sincere, don't show up. If that's how you really feel about that race, then go be bitter in your home, wherever you live now. I don't even know, and don't care either. Go be bitter. Go be a bitter old man that lives all by himself with your fucking huge settlement, and just be miserable. If you are sincere, then prove it. Prove it to those guys. Regardless, still a Hall of Famer. Whether I like it or not, he's still a Hall of Famer. Legacy shouldn't be tarnished over things that don't have anything to do with the actual in-ring work.
Absolutely.
But as always, sound off and let us know what you think. And call me on my bullshit. Not that I haven't.
Hate tweet us on Twitter at 20x20crew. You can catch us on Instagram at 20x20crew. Obviously, there's always our domain, 20x20crew.com. You can catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/20x20crew. Our Facebook group. Come talk to us. Come discuss some stuff. Call us on our bullshit. Facebook.com/groups/20x20talk. And let's also not forget YouTube. We're still looking for 50 subscribers for a giveaway. You can do that by following us to our YouTube page at 20x20crew.com/podcast/YouTube and clicking the subscribe button.
Also, don't forget to check out coming soon, starting in September, a brand new contest on Instagram. More details are going to be coming throughout the rest of this month, as well as the month of August, the entire month of August. So we'll make sure that you have all the details. But until then, always keep updated on the contest via our website, 20x20crew.com/podcast/Instagram. And of course, don't forget to check out our exclusive YouTube show, The Following Contest, where we fantasy book anything wrestling. We got a huge lineup coming very soon throughout the month of August. Check that out again, 20x20crew.com/podcast/YouTube. So that's going to do it for us. As always, we hope that you are hashtag support professional wrestling, support the heels, support the baby faces. And until next week, we will see you in the ring.